Hey, what's up, Baldy?
Hello, fellow Baldy. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You took it all off, huh?
I had to, man. I had to. It was the best feeling in the world. It
Man.
was it was it was liberating.
Well, before we get into our journey into baldness, mine, which has been going on for about 20 years now, and yours, which is just starting, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. This is Rob Tyson, and Rob, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you live down here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. So Rob Tyson. I've been a part of the insurance world professionally from a professional standpoint for 11 years, and decided to venture off on my own late last year, which has been great. Best decision I've ever made. And personally, I am a self-development addict, but I don't suffer from analysis by paralysis, fortunately. So I take things into action. And what else? I enjoy any and everything when it comes to athletics, and I'm a father. And what else? And newly bald by
Yeah.
choice. By choice. And it's been fantastic.
What tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the insurance world? Because I know these things, but I want to make sure other folks know these things. And who knows, somebody might need some help.
Yeah, no. So I have a firm here in Austin, Texas, downtown Austin, and we specialize in maximizing the return on investment that a company makes into their employees or their employee landscape, and that can range from group health benefits. Typically, we like to focus there first because it's usually the second highest expense behind payroll for a company. And then we look at other areas like HR technologies, um, effective strategies to reduce turnover. So we would consider ourselves a non-traditional insurance broker,
Okay.
and pretty much it in a nutshell.
All right. So you've got a bunch of different things. I know there's Worksite X, right? You're still doing that stuff, and that's
Yeah,
kind of the
Worksite,
benefit side, right?
right, right. Worksite X is the main entity in which I'm working under, and my company is working under Worksite X as, I guess you would consider it a franchise, but we mainly consider it as a partnership. Um, so I underwrite through Worksite X, and we just opened up a life insurance division as well. So that's going great.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. It's just a different. It's the main entity. Worksite X is the main entity. Tyson Global works as a partner for Worksite X.
All right. Now we got the formalities out of the way. So tell me how. So because I met you at the gym.
Uh-huh.
So talk about love and fitness. We both love fitness, and I'm certainly going crazy. I'm so sick of not being able to go to the gym. I can't take it. And I got
No,
super excited because Texas, technically as of Monday, gyms are supposed to be able to open, but only at 25% capacity, which apparently for Lifetime Fitness was too much of a restriction. So they have yet to actually open their gyms. Because I got all excited. I was like, you know, if I'm going to take a risk, I might take a risk and go to the gym. I'll wear my mask and my gloves and I'm going to go work out because I really miss working out in the gym. But then I checked in with Lifetime and they were like, yeah, no, we're not actually opening yet because we can't manage at 25% capacity. So really bummed about that. How are you feeling about that?
it's been it was a huge hit on me physically and mentally. I use physical fitness as a way to alleviate some of the mental strains that I come across on a daily basis. And once that was gone, it was very difficult for me to manage. But however, it graduated me to a higher level of thinking. So I started doing more meditation,
Hmm.
started doing more breathing exercises, which I was not as um, I guess I wasn't as advanced as I'm becoming. I learned a lot about myself in the process, but nonetheless, I actually on the contrary, Lifetime is open. It's not open in Austin. It opens, I believe, at the beginning of June or at the end of May in Austin. But I actually drove all the way to San Antonio yesterday just to get a workout in at Lifetime.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. It was a, when you deprive somebody of something for so long and it's a big part of their lives, when you get it back, it's an unexplainable feeling. I walked in there and it felt like I'm not kidding, it felt like I was walking into paradise.
Yeah.
It was great. Had a phenomenal workout, hour and 30 minutes. I was in the sauna for way too long, but it was great.
Well, I thought about that. I guess, I could drive down to San Antonio, but man, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed and keep waiting, because I also miss our particular gym, or either one of both of the ones I go to. But man, so tell me, so is this meditation what led you to think about cutting your hair off?
Yeah, it did. That's a good point. I just thought about that right now. I just became a little bit, a little. I actually, now that I think about it, I think I was solely influenced by everything that's been taking place. I always question myself, why haven't I done it yet? And my hair was slowly, gradually falling out. It wasn't to the point where it was drastic, but I wanted to do something. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and I started getting in tune with my spiritual side. And long story short, one day I just said, what am I doing? Why am I spending all this time, all this money on haircuts, $45 each time I go, every 2 weeks? And it's not a big deal, but it was just like, why am I even stressing over my hair and the loss of my hair? And yeah, one day this was last week, just got some clippers in my drawer and buzzed it off. So yeah, it was a direct influence because of everything that's been taking place. And when I did it, I'm telling you, it was just adding to the feeling of just liberation internally. It was great. And I'm glad I did it. A lot of compliments. Also, some people were shocked.
Yeah.
Some people said, I like you with hair. Some people said, I like you better without hair. And I'm just like, I love it. So I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to grow it back.
The only opinion that matters is yours, especially since it's your body, your head, and your hair. But yeah, I thought I'd ask, and definitely curious to know. And I didn't think we'd be talking about balding and hair loss on this particular conversation, but I think it's actually a good conversation to have, because the reality is, we men, so women certainly identify with their hair. I mean, my mother died from lung cancer almost 5 years ago. I remember when she went through the process of cutting her hair the first time after she started chemo. And I remember how traumatic it was. It was really, really hard for her. She very much identified her womanhood with her hair, and all that stuff. And a lot of women do. And then letting that go and readjusting, I think, was a big, big process for her. And women, when they go through breast cancer and sometimes have to get mastectomies, that's a big blow to them and a big challenge for them. Men, we go through it too. Losing our hair, even though we never probably wore it long, is a sign. It's something that does trigger some feelings of, masculinity and virility, and, am I wearing myself out? Am I, getting used up or whatever? So I'm just curious, how do you feel? Uh-oh. Did you confront any of those kind of feelings? And if so, how'd you deal with them?
Hold on, let me fix the audio. I guess the audio started working. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. So those are great points, and my apologies for that technical error there. Well, I would say that a lot of those feelings that you just discussed were insecurities of mine. deep-rooted insecurities, actually. I didn't even realize it. And, there's a silver lining in all this. And most people don't really see a silver lining in this, and I say the silver lining is you're forced to face some of those demons that you just mentioned. To your point about your mother, and by the way, may she rest in beautiful peace. Um, I haven't been infected by anything like that so far, but I'm sure I will very soon, sometime, um, in my near future. Hopefully not, but it's inevitable. But yeah, it was something that was deep rooted, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize how much it was affecting my life and my livelihood and my ability to step into my true masculinity. And my definition of masculinity now, it's been redefined overnight, is being able just to come into your own, embrace who you are, no matter what you look like. And I know this sounds cliche, but until you actually, do something in regards to, like, let's just say, for instance, shaving your head, right? When you actually do something like that and you become liberated, you really don't care what anybody else thinks, and I truly don't. Then you start to realize, what's really important in life and what's not really important, or what's not important. So, to answer your question, some of those statements that you just mentioned were insecurities of mine, and I didn't even know it. I didn't know it until I actually, went forward and just buzzing my hair off.
Yeah.
I would say, I'd go to the gym and be like, "Oh, I can't sweat too much," or you're gonna see through my hairline, or is that girl noticing my receding hairline? Like it was so normal for me that once I buzzed my hair off, I still was doing some of the same thoughts existed even after I buzzed my hair off. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was a problem. And it even felt like I relieved a lot of my anxiety, to be honest with you. And most men in this particular case don't realize, and women also, but most men don't realize how much it can affect your life. Um,
What's that whole like issue of identity? Like, we identify ourselves with so many things that are not really us. You know, like those strands of hair that you let go, that's not Rob. That's hair that grew out of Rob's body, but that's not Rob. So you can let it go, but there's a point when when you have it and you spend so much time on it and doing it and coloring it, changing it, combing it, whatever, that you start to think that it's you, because you spend so much time and focus on it. So it is a challenging period. I remember my barber slowly worked me into my hair loss. My hair started thinning in my early 20s. I was in law school and it started thinning, and she would just cut it shorter and shorter and shorter. And I think she knew I couldn't take the big blow. So, but then one day she just trimmed it down so short, that I was like, okay, you just worked yourself out of a job, because I was really worried about this, but now I don't look so bad. And this isn't so hard to do. So I think I can do it myself. And yeah, overnight, not overnight, but over like that week or so, I started to realize all that resistance I had was unnecessary. Like I was fighting against something, and all of a sudden when she finally got me so low that you almost couldn't tell that I had a little stubble on my hair, and I was like, oh, this wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
And then some people, I mean, since I've been bald, it was 20 years, people love it. Like if I could get the hair back, I could go get some of those treatments or products. I wouldn't even do it. I
Yeah.
think it's a big part of my like sex appeal now. Like I've had a number of women and a few men even tell me how much they like my bald head.
Yeah.
So. But you spend all that time panicking and worrying, and then you all of a sudden you let it go and you realize you didn't have any reason to worry about it, because it really wasn't a part of who you were. It was just it was like a piece of jewelry. It was an accessory that
Well, I mean, you can't really blame those people because it's almost subliminally put everywhere, like, in billboards and ads, and you see it all over, Hollywood, and people all have full heads of hair, and
Right.
so most men think that it is the acceptable norm, and there's no other way to look besides what they are portraying a man to look like.
Right.
And you fall into that because it starts from a very young age. And I identified solely from my hair at a very young age. Not even kidding. I remember just taking pride in fixing my hair. And I'm not embarrassed to talk about it. I would spend 30, 45 minutes fixing my hair when I was in high school. You know, I took pride on it. I remember I used to get the best barber in my town, and I would go to barber shows and, who can I get to do the best fade? And I probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
it was fun. However, to your point, once I disconnected from those limiting beliefs, it was instantaneous. How, as far as like the liberating feeling of freedom, it was instantaneous. I wouldn't say instantaneous, but for me, it was like maybe a couple of days where I was like, wow, this is great. So glad I did it. Now I need to go get some sun
Yeah.
just to kind of, because it kind of looked a little funny at first because it was kind of lighter up here.
Of course.
And I went to go get some sun for about 4 or 5 hours with my little guy. And we had a wonderful day. And I even met somebody. She was great. She was like, oh, didn't even blink.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention it. I didn't mention I had hair, and it was kind of like a stamp for me, stamp of approval for myself. Like, dude, you can do so many other things.
Yeah.
It was great. It was like a wave.
Very liberating experience. Yeah. And yeah, eventually at some point, like now, I mean, I have some pictures. I see pictures every once in a while of myself when I had hair, and but it's not even a thought anymore. I don't even really remember what it felt like or any of that stuff. It's like it just wasn't a big deal. So congratulations and kudos to you. Welcome to the Baldy Club.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. And I have some friends that are they strictly date men, like gay men and friends. I have a lot of gay men friends, and they tell it how it is. My buddies do, at least, and they were like, "You need to keep that look," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, okay." I guess I just kind of blended into my personality as well because I was always hard nosed. I mean, you knew me, but I
Yeah.
have a lot of compassion, but I'm also like very straightforward, and I speak my mind, and I don't hold anything back. And they were like, that look fits you better. You come
Yeah.
off as more dominant,
Yeah.
and then if you're a male and you're ever thinking about doing it, I would encourage you all to go online and look up bald men, and you can check the psychology
Yeah.
into it and how you're perceived, and it's empowering, you
Yeah.
know. So
There's
that's what I
there's
think.
there's a saying that bald guys have more fun. They're viewed as more sexy and dominant and masculine. It's so weird that you're so attached to your hair and losing it because you feel like it's a sign of your loss of virility because you're like, oh my God, he's getting older. He can't keep his hair in his head or whatever. But then later on, you come to realize a lot of people actually view it as a more of a sign of virility and strength and whatever. They made Mr. Clean bald for a reason. Like
Sure.
most of the Mr. T. I mean, you name them. I mean, a lot of people out there, big bald heads are becoming very so well associated with like strength and masculinity and whatever. So I think a lot of it's in our head. We just hold on to, it's like the gym, like, you had something and now you're losing it. And there's some grief around losing anything that you've had, especially if you put a lot of time and energy into it. But then you realize, okay, it wasn't that big of a deal,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I get it.
It also puts you in a different area of thinking, a higher level of thinking. It forces you to, almost, and I don't want to call it pain, but for lack of a better term, it forces you to sit with your pain or sit with your insecurities.
Yeah.
And this all kind of blended together because of this whole pandemic situation. I was having to sit there and think about things that I never really thought about as much. And it's almost like I subconsciously did it. So that's where I was going back to my original point about the silver lining in all this. If you really use this for your benefit, how that saying goes, life happens for us, not to us.
Right.
You can definitely use this to your benefit to uncover some of those, areas of darkness in your mind.
So let's talk about that. There are three things I like to ask folks as we go through this COVID-19. Hopefully, we're coming out of it. Experience. The first is, how are you coping? The second is, how are you growing? Hopefully, in some way or another. And the third is, what's your plan for carrying forward what you've learned from this experience? So let's take them one by one. How are you coping? What's your coping skill or skill that you've leaned into most to get through this difficult time?
Yeah, I think my preparation a couple of years ago by starting to read Stoic philosophy really prepared me mentally for this. And I wasn't anticipating anything to happen like this, not even close. I couldn't even imagine in my wildest dreams, right?
Nor could anybody else. This is like worse or outside of the reach of people who write sci-fi novels. Like, I don't think you could have written a sci-fi book like this.
Yeah, it's like an episode of I forgot what that strange show was called, but yeah, like on HBO, I forgot that show. But anyway, Black Mirror. It's like an episode of Black Mirror. But no, I would say Stoic philosophy really prepared me for this mentally. And I started reading Stoic philosophy 2 years ago. I started off by reading Marcus Aurelius' book, Meditations. And I read it several times because it's very difficult to read. But once you understand the concept of what he's trying to say, then you get prepared for anything that comes at you. And I think had I not read that, I probably would have been in a little bit more of a panic state. So I'm coping with this by just referring back to some of those readings, referring back to some of those quotes. I actually ordered to hang up here in my place on my wall, Marcus Aurelius, one of his favorite quotes, or favorite quotes by him, and I can't memorize it by memory, but it's a long quote, or it's actually a statement. But so that's what I'm coping with this by reading, learning, staying optimistic, not focusing on the things I can't control, is keeping my family close to me, making sure I'm positive to my son, not letting him get too caught up in the hysteria, right? Just making it fun for him. And I get bought into that too, because I see how oblivious he is, and it makes me think like, let me just think like a 4-year-old for a
Right.
few seconds. So that's been helpful.
Yeah. Growing. How are you growing? Obviously you're not growing here, but you grow in some other ways, from these experiences. How are you growing?
I think I've grown quite a bit, and I'm not just saying this for the sake of this conversation. I think I've grown quite a bit, because again, just to emphasize, I was very, very tied into my identity from having hair and having the best haircut. So taking that leap really showed me that I'm capable of way more. So, and then from a mental standpoint too, I never thought that I could be home alone by myself, because I don't have my son every day.
Right.
Be home alone by myself, not being able to socialize and still be okay. So growing from this mentally has been, eye-opening for myself. It's preparing me for the future. If anything, any type of adversity, which I'm going to have, it's going to be inevitable, that it comes my way, I think I'm going to be a lot more prepared for it. So it's strengthening my mind. It's building that mental callus, right? Speaking of gym, it's building that. It's giving me a mental workout that I probably needed.
I think that's true for everybody. I mean, speaking of the gym and whatever, I use this analogy all the time. Muscles grow by tearing. You know, you cannot grow muscle mass without injuring the very muscle you're trying to grow. Like, you just can't. It grows by tearing, so you have to stretch and push and push. and it tears and then heals and it gets bigger, and it tears and it heals and it gets bigger. And that's how it goes. And I think in some ways our strength as a human race is being tested and stretched in that way, because this is not beginner level, adversity. This is a serious high level of adversity. And while many of us have not made it through, those of us that do make it through will certainly be stronger because of it. Because getting through this, even the most zen of us are having a hard time, with this. It's just hard. It's human nature to want to interact and have contact and whatever, and finding ways to grow and survive without having those is a big test.
Yeah, well, it's like nature, real quick. It's like nature. It's like, in nature, if you're in a herd and one of your packs, one of the animals in the pack gets sick or dies, I mean, it's up to them to survive. And we have a symbiotic relationship with nature. And if we think about how nature has evolved, the strongest survive. And it's even some of the test. It's some of the verses from the Bible as well. There's a lot of things in there, a lot of statements in there that directly correlate with that.
The race is not given to the swift or the strong, but the one who endures to the end.
There you go. There you go. So
that's where it's a marathon, not a sprint came from. The reality is, life is not a sprint.
Correct.
To the end.
Correct. Great.
So how are you going to carry forward? One day, hopefully soon, life will go back to, will not go back because it never goes back, but life will begin to look different than it looks today. I mean, maybe the difference will look a little bit more like what we were used to, but certainly not exactly. We get back to where we can actually interact with each other like we used to. We get back to going to the gym, having our smoothies like we used to, and all that stuff. How are you going to kind of keep all this stuff that you've learned and grown into a part of your life, or will you keep it in your life?
So I've thought about this, and it's going to make me appreciate things so much more. And I think that is the biggest lesson or silver lining in this whole situation, is that, I got a little taste of what it's potentially going to be like when we get back to normal. I went to the park, and this is what I mentioned earlier with my son the other day. And there were people out there, having drinks and playing volleyball and running around, and there were dogs playing. And the attitude and with everybody around us was just something I've never seen, specifically here or whenever I'm out in the park.
Sure.
People were just open. They were like yearning for conversations. Everyone was talking to each other. It was a beautiful thing. So I think for me, I'm going to really cherish those moments and not get too caught up in the transactional, routine, mundane things that I have to do, right? Like I have to prepare the day before, or I have to focus on this meeting the next day, or I have to focus on these new policies that are coming out, new health insurance policies.
Right.
That's important. But before this happened, I remember, getting a shake. I'm just, well, yeah, I need a shake, whatever. And, or, I'm going to go take a walk, and then I'd be on my phone.
Right.
Or, so you catch my drift. I'm going to be more present when it comes to those little things. Instead of being on my phone when I'm out in nature, instead of, being on my phone when when somebody's making a shake for me, or I'm interacting with somebody at the gym, I'm going to make it to where I'm present in those moments more, because just like we saw, it can easily be taken away from you.
Right.
And things can change overnight.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's a big lesson. I mean, right now we're clinging a little bit more to our devices because it's the only way we can connect. But even before this happened, I remember certain vacations I'd take every year, and I'd go places on purpose because I couldn't take my devices. I go places where you just can't, there's no Wi-Fi or devices aren't allowed because that freedom from unplugging and being able just to be present and not constantly checking social media and checking emails and posting selfies and taking pictures of everything, does, you all of a sudden like, okay, all I have are the people that are in front of me, like you actually
Right.
have conversations with them and you find ways to entertain yourself with talking to them and touching them and whatever versus messaging them. And I feel like for me, when this is over, there'll be a point where we'll be like, okay, enough, let me put this computer away. Let me put this phone away because now I got a human that I can interact with, like I can speak to and touch and I don't want, I want to unplug and be away from the devices. So I hope more people feel the same way because, for me personally, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most is being able to like connect and be like present with somebody else. When I went to grab some tea or coffee with my friend Tia. I think I might have mentioned this to you over the
Yeah.
weekend. And this crazy thing happened on the way. We walked down South Lamar, got free pizza because one bar was just like, "Hey, we're giving out free pizza." Like, okay. And then some dude crazily had tried to attack somebody at the coffee shop to steal their computer. Yeah, literally. And then some other dude went and rescued the computer and got it back. And it's just this crazy moment. And only because of the insanity of this whole guy stealing stuff, trying to steal stuff. I mean, it was really out of control. Like he orchestrated a whole, it's like he screamed and hollered, he threw drinks at people. He got them to get up and get off the patio and go in the restaurant so he could steal the computer. And then he ran off with the computer.
Oh,
And some guy, I don't, a guy I've now gotten to know a little bit. He just, I don't know. He said God spoke to him, and so he ran over to the man and caught up with him and said, "Hey, drop the computer." And the guy was screaming at him. And he's like, "Look, man, I don't want to fight. I love you. Just drop the computer." And the guy did.
oh, that's
Because of
beautiful.
the sheer like unbelievability of that, I picked up my device and recorded a video. But other than that, that whole time we were out, like neither one of us were touching phones or thinking about phones or doing any of that stuff. We were just happy to be in each other's presence because it had been so long since we actually were able to walk down the street together. Uh,
Right.
and I can't wait till we get to that place where at least, for a couple of months or so, everybody's just like happy to be able to be connected and not through a phone or a computer or a camera.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that so much. Crazy story. I mean,
I
you,
know the
I can't
video's
even
on
believe
Facebook. You should check it out. I'll send it to you. It is a whole crazy experience. Literally, completely crazy.
my computer's dying. I forgot to plug it in. 1 second here. Excuse me.
That's all right.
Sorry for the dead air.
That's all right. This is life. I mean, this is the reality of living and breathing virtually.
I'm still getting the routine down, or the new routine, for lack of a better term here, because I just moved and I love my new place. And there we go. And yeah, I love it. I live on.
Oh, well, that didn't work. All right. I think we got Rob back. Let's see. All right. Are you back?
I'm back.
Man. All right. Well, this is a test of my hosting skills to see if I could pause the video and restart it and hope this all seamlessly comes together. It's the reality. It's life. Stuff happens.
It's a good example. You're absolutely right. That stuff happens. Like I was saying, I'm just trying to get used to my new spot. The technology's still a little clunky. I just got my internet up and still getting used to the new spot. I built it out, so I have my TV up here. So it almost looks like a trading a trading post, like if I was a stockbroker, actually. Now that I think about it. I have two giant screens right here. It's a big screen up here. It's wonderful. I love it.
Well, there's always room for what's next. Rob 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and all that stuff. So who knows what's in your future?
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited actually.
But I'm glad we got you back. I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect. Hopefully we'll get a chance to hang out in person soon too. I mean, I'd love to do that and see
Yeah.
the live bald, the real bald. I
Yeah.
think we covered everything. So technical difficulties notwithstanding, we still got it all in, which is saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can always just pick every time we have a conversation. It's like we rehearsed it 48 times. It's always natural flowing, which, we talked about it several times, how
Yeah.
I always have those natural flowing conversations.
Well, when you have stuff to talk about, and you're easy to talk to, it's not hard to have a conversation.
Same, yeah, same. And I think the bars open up on the 18th, matter of fact, or excuse me, on Friday. So yeah, maybe we can go to a restaurant / bar, have a drink and catch up.
Yeah, I guess I'll conclude my thoughts with this because there was a point, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in public health, totally get the concern, the need to flatten the curve, to be smart and all those things. But I have had to confront the reality that, this is an imperfect scenario. There's never going to be a perfect public health response. There's never going to be a perfect economic response because we're human and our needs are going to change, our feelings are going to change, our emotions are going to change. So I really have gotten to a place. There was a point where I was like, I'm staying in my house until there's a vaccine. I'm staying in, I'm locking the doors, we're going to lock it down. And then I had to confront the realities of that. That's just not how I, as a human being, can survive. Like I need these connections. And so as I hear about bars opening, at first I was thinking, oh my God, it's too soon, it's too crazy. And I still think it's too soon and it's too crazy. However, I also think I might indulge safely and responsibly,
There you
just
go.
like I do with everything else in life that has some element of danger, and some element of risk. I try to manage it and do it safely and responsibly because I know that there's got to be a balance. I
Sure.
can't stay locked in my house forever and stay sane. Like I need to see some people. I need to go to a bar. I need to go to the gym. I need to do those kinds of things. So a week or two ago, you'd have said, "Hey, let's meet for a drink," and I'd be like, "Are you crazy?" Now I'm like, I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. To your point, I mean, if we were to really, kind of shut down everything that was dangerous, then we would, stop driving cars, or we would, whenever there was a crazy flu season back in 2013, we'd shut down everything. And I think it's important to be cautious, absolutely. And I think it's going to change the way we see. What gets me excited is that bars are going to be probably a lot cleaner than they were. I mean, people are going to take more precaution in cleaning things. I went to the bar the other day. There was one that was open right down the street from where I'm at. And let me tell you, the bathroom it was spick and span. The glasses were glistening. I was like, oh, this is great. And it got me excited and optimistic about the future because I'm like, now people are going to take precaution and keeping things clean because before, I read some study that the dirtiest glasses were at bars because they take very little effort into cleaning them.
Absolutely.
So when I saw this bar, when I went to this particular bar, and I went to a couple of them actually, I mean, everything was so clean. The food was beautifully prepped. And I said, please keep this up. Again, I'm always seeing the silver lining in things, but yeah, I agree. I think, I was one of those guys starting in February that was just all pro, like, hey, don't worry, da da da. But then going back, I was like, I have to be morally, I have to come to terms that some people are going to be extra scared and cautious, and I need to keep that in consideration. So I kind of made a balance. Just to your point, I balanced it out a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I mean, I got a dad, I still have my dad, he's 81, and I think about him and his risk, and I hope people will continue to think about him and people like him and their risk level. But at the same time, I know my dad would be the first one to say he doesn't want to see me go bonkers and and have a miserable life staying in the house trying to save his. So I think there's a balance, and I'm looking forward to trying to figure out that balance. That's going to be the whole talk about what's next. The next is figuring out the balance.
Yeah.
Safety and fun and freedom and all that stuff. So I look forward to that and to toasting it with you when we get a chance to get together real soon.
I agree. That's going to be great. It's going to be glorious. I'm excited.
All right, God. I am so glad I got to see you. I like the bald.
Thank you.
And I'll see you again real soon.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
All right, see you later, Rob.
See ya.